I died on the 37th day of the siege. Not literally. But the man I was before that moment never drew breath again. My name was Talos. I was a captain in the Imperial Fist's 3rd Company, assigned to the Helios Gate sector. I say was, because that person ended when they put me in this sarcophagus, when they sealed what remained of my body inside a Dreadnought chassis and told me I would serve forever. That was 5,500 years ago. I still remember being flesh, still dream about having hands that could feel, still wake from dormancy, screaming with a Vox speaker that can't scream properly. But I'm telling you this because I was there. I stood on walls that shouldn't have fallen. I watched Primarch's duel while the galaxy burned. I learned that some things are worse than death. This is what it was like when Terra died and was reborn. This is what it cost. The sky turned red 3 weeks before the first shot was fired. Not from fire, from the reflection of a fleet so vast that stars disappeared behind it. I stood on the wall with my sergeant, Malchar, and we counted hulls until we stopped counting. There was no point. The numbers meant nothing except that we were going to die. "How long do you think we have?" Malchar asked. I checked my chrono, looked at the fleet, did the math. Long enough to regret living this long? He laughed. It was the last time I heard him laugh. They found his body 3 weeks later in a trench near the Helios Gate, cut in half by a World Eater's chain axe. He was still holding his bolter. Still had his finger on the trigger. The weapon was empty. He'd fired until there was nothing left to fire. We'd had months to prepare. Rogel Dorn, our Primarch, had rebuilt the Imperial Palace into something that defied sanity. Walls that reached the clouds. Void shields that could catch stars. Gun batteries that could crack moons. He'd spent years calculating every angle, every approach, every way the enemy might kill us. Then he'd built defenses for each one. Standing on those walls the first night, I understood what he hadn't said. We weren't trying to win. We were trying to buy time. Every hour purchased with our lives, every day paid for in blood. The bombardment started at what should have been dawn. There was no dawn, just the sudden, impossible brightness of weapons designed to kill planets. The void shields caught it. Turned apocalypse into light shows. Pretty, almost. Like festivals I remembered from childhood on some world whose name I'd forgotten. Then a shell made it through. A gap in the shields. A fraction of a second. One shell out of thousands. It hit the Tertius Bastion 2 kilometers from my position. I was looking at it when it ceased to exist. No explosion. No fire. Just there, then gone. 300 soldiers. 2 Predator tanks. 17 heavy bolter emplacements. 1,000 years of Imperial history carved into those walls. Atoms. Scattered. Gone. I vomited inside my helmet. Couldn't help it. My filtration systems recycled it. I tasted bile for the next 6 hours, learned to live with it. Everything in the siege was about learning to live with things that should kill you. Brother Sergeant Cavis found me after. Put his hand on my shoulder. Said nothing. His Vox clicked off. We stood together watching the shields flicker and burn, watched them die in sections, watched them resurrect. Watched the pattern repeat until the pattern was the only truth that mattered. "They'll break eventually," I said. "Yes. We'll die. Yes. And it won't matter." He turned to look at me. His helm's lenses reflected the burning sky. "It will matter. Someone will remember. Someone has to." 4 days later, the traitors sent their first wave. Not Space Marines. Not the Primarchs who'd betrayed everything we'd built. Just men. Corrupted Imperial Army regiments. Slave soldiers with brands on their faces and chaos marks carved into their flesh. Cultists who thought their gods would reward them for dying. They were wrong. Their gods laughed. We killed them from the walls, heavy bolters, autocannons, artillery that turned the killing fields into meat. The sound was constant. Not individual shots, but a sustained roar like industrial machinery. The smell came next. Burned meat, ruptured intestines, promethium and blood mixing into a stench that soaked into your armor's filters until you couldn't remember air that didn't taste like death. They kept coming. I watched a lander crash 200 meters from the walls. It split open like overripe fruit. The soldiers inside poured out, already on fire from the impact. Some tried to pat out the flames. Most just ran toward us, screaming, burning, dying as they charged. We killed them all. Then the next wave came, and the next, and the bodies piled so high they formed their own terrain. The new attackers used corpses as cover, as barricades, as stepping stones over wire and mines. Brother Cavis was beside me at the wall. We'd been firing for 8 hours. My bolter was so hot I could feel it through my gauntlets. His armor had a crack in the left pauldron where shrapnel had found a seam. Blood leaked through. He hadn't mentioned it. How many? I asked. Stopped counting at 80,000. A last round sparked off the wall near his head. He didn't flinch, just adjusted his aim and fired. Someone screamed. The scream cut off. Think we're winning? He ejected a spent magazine, loaded a new one. The motion was automatic. Muscle memory. His hands shook slightly. He was as scared as I was. No. That was day 4. Mortarion came on day 12. We smelled him before we saw him. The wind changed direction. Suddenly the air tasted like corpses left in summer heat, like gangrene, like every disease humanity had ever named, given form, and exhaled across the killing fields. My armor's atmospheric seals engaged automatically. Warning runes flickered across my visor. Toxicity levels exceeded safe parameters, then exceeded survival parameters, then stopped trying to calculate because the numbers meant nothing. We were breathing death. The Death Guard emerged from clouds of their own making. They didn't march. They walked with the patient certainty of men who'd already died and accepted it, who'd found peace in corruption, who knew that suffering was enlightenment if you just stopped fighting it. One of them waved at us. Actually waved, like we were old friends meeting after years apart. Then the gases hit our lines. I watched Private Yannick dissolve. He was 60 meters away, young, barely 20. He told me about his sister yesterday, about how she worked in the Palace Administratum, about how he was going to find her after the siege, take her somewhere green, somewhere the sky wasn't red. The gas touched him, and his skin started weeping, just crying yellow fluid that ran down his face like tears. He tried to wipe it away. His hand came away with strips of his own cheek. He looked at the flesh in his palm, screamed. The scream turned liquid. He fell. He didn't get back up. That was mercy. Others did. The militia regiment holding the trench line to our right turned. 5,000 men. The gases rolled over them. They fired into it until their weapons melted, until their hands melted, until they stopped being men and became something else. Something that stood back up with milk-white eyes and started walking toward the trenches they'd just defended. We burned them. Brother Cavis carried the flamer. He walked along the trench line. Methodical, professional. Turned our own soldiers into pillars of fire that kept walking for 3, 4, 5 steps before they fell. Each one was someone's brother, someone's son, someone who'd sworn to defend Terra. We burned them all. When it was done, Cavis set the flamer down, sat on the trench wall. His hands were shaking so badly he couldn't hold his bolter. "They were ours," he said. "They were ours and You saved them," I said. "You ended it. That's all you could do." He looked at me, I couldn't see his face through his helm, but I heard the break in his voice. How many more, Talos? How many more of us do I have to burn? I didn't answer. Didn't know how. The Death Guard reached our walls by day 15. I met one in the trench, face to face, visor to visor. He was enormous. Terminator plate fused with rotting flesh. You could see the meat between armor joints. See it moving, maggots, writhing in wounds that wept ichor. He smiled at me. I know because his helm's vox projected it. A wheezing, wet chuckle. "Brother," he said, "you're fighting for a corpse." My power sword took him in the stomach, went through the corroded ceramite, through diseased flesh, should have killed him. He looked down at the blade, smiled wider, grabbed the sword with one hand, pulled himself along it toward me. Each movement brought him closer, brought the stench closer, brought the wrongness closer. "Your emperor has abandoned you," wheezed. "But grandfather loves all his children, even you." Brother Cavis's chain fist took his head off. The body fell, kept twitching. The maggots fled the corpse like rats from a sinking ship. They burrowed into the trench walls, into the mud, waiting. It took 3 of us to bring him down. Cavus was injured. The Plague Marine's chainsword had found his arm, taken it off cleanly at the elbow. The wound was already turning black, already weeping. Cavus looked at his missing limb, looked at me, picked up a melta charge from his belt, pressed it against the stump, didn't say anything, just bit down on a strap and triggered it. The smell of cauterized flesh mixed with everything else. When it was done, he picked up his bolter with his remaining hand, checked the magazine, started walking back toward the line. "Cavus!" "Don't," he said. "Don't say anything. I can still fight. That's all that matters." He fought for 3 more weeks, never mentioned the arm, never slowed down, just kept killing traitors until a Terminator caught him in a corridor on day 36. Found what was left of him afterward. He'd killed the Terminator, emptied his bolter into its helm at point-blank range. The giant's head was gone. Cavus was crushed beneath its body. He was still gripping his bolter. Between assaults, we stopped being human. The food they sent up tasted like ash. Water tasted like chemicals. Sleep was something that happened while standing, because lying down meant you might not wake up when the next wave came. Your circadian rhythm died. Your sense of time died. You existed in a state between awake and unconscious, where nightmares and reality merged. One night, or what passed for night, I found Sergeant Cross sitting on the wall edge. Legs dangling over a 3-kilometer drop. He was singing some old Terran song, about fields, about home, about a girl with golden hair and a smile that made everything worth it. His voice was terrible, cracked, off-key, the most beautiful thing I'd heard in weeks. "Why are we doing this?" I asked. He didn't look at me. Kept singing, got to the end of a verse, stopped, stared at the burning horizon. "Because if we don't, there's nothing left. Because someone has to stand when standing means dying. Because—" He trailed off, started again. "Because I don't know how to do anything else anymore. This is all I am now, a weapon, a tool, something that kills until it breaks. That's not—" "It is. Look at us, Talos. Look at what we've become. When was the last time you thought about something other than killing? About something other than survival? About anything that made you feel human?" I couldn't answer. Couldn't remember. "That's what they've taken," he said. "Not our lives, our souls. We're already dead. We just don't know it yet." He died on day 17. Bolter round through the helm. Quick, clean, didn't suffer. I envied him. The White Scar's sortie happened on day 18. We knew it was coming because we heard the engines. That distinctive scream of jet bikes pushed past safety limits. The gates opened. 300 riders poured out like white lightning given form. I watched from the wall, watched them hit the Death Guard artillery positions and simply erase them. Watched them weave through enemy fire like they were dancing. Watched them kill with a joy that seemed obscene in a place where joy had died. For 15 minutes, we weren't losing. Then the World Eaters saw them. The Berserkers came in a wave, not tactical, not disciplined. Just rage made flesh. They didn't dodge fire, didn't seek cover, just charged screaming at the white scars with chain axes raised and Khorne's name on their lips. I saw a white scar take a chain axe through his chest. The blade went through his armor, through his fused ribcage, out his back. Should have killed him instantly. He grabbed his killer's arms, locked eyes with the World Eater, smiled, triggered his bike's reactor overload. The explosion took them both. Took 3 more World Eaters. His brothers rode over the crater without slowing, without looking back. They couldn't. Stopping meant death. The Khan's withdrawal was a running battle, every meter paid for in blood. I saw warriors who'd survived the siege's worst die in those moments, saw them cut down, dragged from their bikes, torn apart by hands and chain blades and pure rage. Then Sanguinius came. The angel of Baal descended from above, with wings spread wide, not flying, falling with purpose. Where he landed, the ground cracked. Traitors were thrown backward by the impact. Golden armor blazed in the red light. His blade sang. He didn't fight like us, didn't struggle or strain. He moved like killing was breathing, natural, inevitable, beautiful in its horror. A World Eater champion charged him. 8 feet of corrupted muscle and ceramite, blessed by Khorne himself. The sanguinary guard moved to intercept. Sanguinius raised one hand. "Stop!" The champion swung his axe. The angel caught the haft, stopped it, held it. The champion's momentum crashed against an immovable object. Bones broke. The champion stumbled. Sanguinius's blade removed his head. No wasted motion, no flourish, just necessity made manifest. He gathered the Khan in his arms like a father carrying a child, rose into the ash-filled sky, carried his brother to safety while his sanguinary guard held the gate. Less than half the white scars made it back. 147 warriors went out, 62 returned, each one carrying wounds that would never fully heal, but the artillery position was destroyed. The Death Guard advance slowed. We bought another day. The Word-Bearers' ritual happened on day 23. They came at dawn with chains and prayers, brought prisoners. Thousands of them, men, women, children, all shackled together in patterns that made my eyes hurt to follow. Then they started cutting, not quickly, not mercifully. They opened veins, let the blood flow through. Channels carved into the earth. The patterns emerged as the blood filled them. Symbols that no sane mind should recognize, but I understood anyway. My soul screamed at me to look away. I couldn't. The prisoners screamed for hours, the ones who weren't gagged. The Word-Bearers had gagged the children, left the adults to voice their agony. It was part of the ritual. The sound was power. Pain was prayer. Some of us wanted to fire. End it. Brother Sergeant Kaldor actually raised his bolter. Aimed at a child who couldn't have been more than 8. Whose blood was painting symbols into Terra's poisoned soil. Captain Hector grabbed his arm. "Hold." "Sir, I know. Hold. We have to. We need the ammunition for what comes after. They're already dead. Firing won't save them. It will only spend rounds we need." Kaldor lowered his weapon. I heard him vomiting over the Vox. No one said anything. We all wanted to. The screaming went on for 3 more hours. Then the air split. Demons poured through. Not the bestial ones, not the mindless ones. These knew their names, knew ours. They looked at you and your squad markings and spoke in the voice of battle brothers who died decades ago, called you by name, asked why you'd let them die. The Imperial Army regiment holding the Eastern Wall broke. 5,000 men, trained, equipped, prepared. They broke anyway. Because how do you fight your dead brother wearing a demon's skin? How do you pull the trigger when it's begging you for help in a voice you remember from better days? You don't. You run. You flee. You die. Malkador the Sigillite came. He didn't announce himself. The air just changed. The pressure shifted. Something vast and ancient and utterly implacable appeared at the ritual's heart. The demons screamed, not in rage, in fear. Malkador spoke one word, just one, in a language that predated humanity, that might have predated reality itself. The ritual collapsed. The demons were sucked back into the immaterium. The word-bearers fled. Erebus ran, actually ran. The first chaplain, the architect of the heresy, running like a child from a nightmare. Malkador stood alone among the bodies, blood soaking into his robes, his staff blazing with power that made my eyepieces filter to black. Then he fell. Custodians carried him back to the palace. He was bleeding from his eyes, his nose, his ears. His skin was cracking like old parchment. He looked like he'd aged a century in an hour. He didn't speak for 3 days. When he did, his first words were, "How many more times?" No one answered. By day 30, we'd lost the outer defenses. The Death Guard held the north, the sons of Horus the west. The Emperor's children sang through the eastern ruins. The Iron Warriors built their siege works in full view, daring us to stop them. Perturabo was out there, the siege master. We couldn't see him, but we felt his hand in everything. Every probe tested our defenses. Every assault learned from what killed it. Every day we faced enemies in slightly different configurations. Testing, measuring, calculating. He was writing an equation in our blood. The answer was our extinction. It was just a matter of time until he solved it. The Saturnine Gambit came on day 42. Abaddon came through the tunnels. We'd known about the approach. Dorn had known. He'd prepared. The trap was set weeks in advance. Ambush points, kill zones, overlapping fields of fire. The Praetorian had calculated every angle, every approach, every way the sons of Horus could die. I was positioned in Kill Zone 7, 3rd level, overlook position. I could see the tunnel mouth, could see the darkness inside. Waited. They came at midnight. Terminators, just Aaron elite. Their armor was black as void, gold trim, the symbols of a legion that had betrayed everything they'd once stood for. They moved with perfect discipline, perfect coordination. They were magnificent. They were damned. The walls erupted, hidden bolters, lascannons. Melta charges preset in the tunnel ceiling. The sons of Horus walked into a killing field designed by a Primarch who'd spent 7 years preparing for this moment. They died by the hundreds. But Abaddon lived. The despoiler walked through fire that should have vaporized him. His tactical Dreadnought armor was scorched, cracked, bleeding sparks and coolant. He didn't slow down, just kept walking toward the inner gates with the Talon of Horus crackling and his Stormbolter firing in controlled bursts. Dorn met him. Our Primarch descended from an upper level. No proclamation, no announcement, just there. Storm's teeth in hand, face expressionless. They clashed in a corridor that wasn't meant for Primarchs. The ceiling was too low, the walls too narrow. It didn't matter. They fought anyway. I watched my Gene-father trade blows with the first captain of the Traitor Legions. Watched Abaddon's Talon score lines in ceramite that had never been breached. Watched Dorn's blade find gaps in Terminator plate that shouldn't exist. It lasted 3 minutes. Felt like hours. Dorn drove Abaddon back. Not easily, not cleanly, but back. Forced him to retreat, forced him to admit defeat. The despoiler looked at our Primarch, said something I couldn't hear. Dorn didn't respond, just watched as Abaddon withdrew. Let him go. Because killing him would have meant pursuing into the tunnels, into the dark, where more sons of Horus waited. The trap had worked. We'd killed thousands of their elite. But Abaddon survived. They always survive, Brother Hector said beside me. The champions of chaos, that's what makes them champions. Behind us, charges detonated. The tunnels collapsed. Buried hundreds of sons of Horus alive. Sealed the approach forever. The screams went on for hours, then days. Then we stopped hearing them. Or maybe we just learned to ignore them. The Lion's Gate spaceport fell on day 33. Changed everything. I wasn't there when it happened. But I knew First Captain Sigismund had trained under him. He was the greatest swordsman in the Imperium. Had dueled champions and Primarchs and won. When he came back from Lion's Gate, his armor was shattered. His arm hung useless. His helm was cracked. He said nothing, just walked past us toward the Medicae. His shoulders were bent. His stride was off. I'd never seen him wounded before. What happened? Brother Hector asked. Sigismund stopped, turned. His cracked helm looked at us. Angron manifested. 2 words. They explained everything. Sigismund recovered, had his arm repaired, his armor patched, his helm replaced. But something in him had broken that couldn't be fixed. I saw him 3 more times during the siege. Each time he was quieter. Each time there was less behind his eyes, like he was burning himself out from the inside, using himself up, becoming a weapon rather than a man. That's what Angron did. That's what chaos took. Not just bodies. Souls. With Lion's Gate gone, the Titans came. God machines that stood as tall as hive spires. Warlords, reavers. Legio Mortis bearing the skull and cog. Their footsteps shook the earth. Their guns could level bastions with single shots. Their void shields could swallow the output of entire artillery companies. Fighting them wasn't combat, it was sacrifice. You'd fire everything you had, watch it splash against shields, watch the Titan turn, watch its weapon track. Then the world turned white. If you survived, you picked up your weapon, reloaded, fired again, because that's all there was left. Day 37, Hollow Mountain. The Astronomican facility was under assault. The Emperor's children had taken its outer terraces, filled them with obscenities, turned holy ground into theaters for their perversions. Then the sky split, dark angels, dropping from orbit without warning, without announcement. Just sudden, overwhelming violence in the enemy's rear. The Emperor's children died in windows, cut down while they admired their own atrocities. Never saw it coming. Were too busy perfecting cruelty to notice death closing in. The Astronomican went dark. For 6 hours, the Emperor's light failed. Across the galaxy, navigators went blind. Ships drifted, fleets scattered. The arterial system of the Imperium seized. I felt it go out, felt the absence, like suddenly losing a sense you'd never known you had. The universe became darker, colder, more hostile. Then it reignited. Brighter than before, defiant, blazing. I felt warmth in my chest for the first time in weeks. Felt something like hope. Felt the certainty that we weren't alone, that reinforcements were coming, that the Emperor's light still burned. That's when I understood we might actually survive. That's also when everything started ending. Sanguinius stood at the Eternity Gate on day 53, alone. The Blood Angels had fallen back to secondary positions. The custodians guarded the inner approaches. But at the gate itself, the angel stood alone. Wings spread. Blade, drawn, waiting. The traitor host came like a tide, world eaters, sons of Horus, demon engines, things that had no name, all converging on one point, on one man. Angren manifested. The Red Angel emerged from the warp with a scream that shattered stone. His axes were the size of tanks. His presence was madness. His aura made brave men weep and claw at their own faces. He crashed into our lines like a meteor. Everything he touched died. Everything near him went mad. The battle became slaughter. Sanguinius met him at the threshold. Their duel was brief, terrible. I watched from the walls. The angel didn't try to kill his brother, tried to save him. Reached into Angren's mind with psychic power I couldn't comprehend. Grabbed something, ripped. Angren screamed. The sound tore reality, made the sky bleed, made the ground crack. Then silence. For one heartbeat, Angren was free. The butcher's nails were gone, the thing that had tortured him since childhood, the source of his eternal rage. Gone. He looked at Sanguinius, recognized him, remembered. "Brother," he whispered. Then the rage came back, not from the nails, from the loss of them, from the sudden crushing weight of every moment of suffering he'd endured with nothing to focus it, nothing to direct it, just raw, unfiltered agony seeking outlet. The warp couldn't contain it. Reality couldn't contain it. Angron was torn apart by his own pain, dragged screaming back into the immaterium. Sanguinius knelt, bleeding from his psychic exertion, bleeding from wounds Angron had carved into his chest. His wings were shredded. His armor was cracked. He stood anyway, looked at the traitor host, at the thousands of enemies still coming. "This is where I stand," he said. His voice carried. Every warrior on both sides heard it. "This is where I fall if I must, but I will not move." The gate sealed behind him. The angel faced the darkness alone. He smiled. Horus arrived at sunset on day 55. You didn't see the War Master. You felt him, like gravity had increased, like the air had become thicker, like reality itself bent around him. I watched from my position, watched him walk toward the Eternity Gate. Behind him came the elite of the traitor legions. In front of him stood one man with wings. Sanguinius attacked first, launched himself with wings spread, blade blazing, beautiful, perfect, everything humanity aspired to become. Horus barely moved. His talon caught the angel mid-flight, lifted him like a child. "You were always my favorite," the War Master said. "I stood for humanity," Sanguinius replied, blood on his lips. "You stand for ashes." His blade struck, pierced Horus's armor, not deep, just enough, a wound, a crack, a flaw. The talon punched through the angel's chest. Sanguinius died without a scream. His eyes stayed open. His blade stayed lodged in Horus's armor. His wings folded one final time. Horus stepped over him and continued toward the throne room. I don't know what happened in that final chamber. Wasn't there? None of us were except the Emperor and Horus, and one soldier whose name we've never learned. What I know is what the archives say, what survivors piece together, what we've believed for 5,000 years. The Emperor fought his son. The duel transcended reality. The palace shook. Vox channels filled with screaming. A soldier intervened, fired at the War Master, did nothing. Horus killed him, casually, thoughtlessly. That's when the Emperor stopped holding back. I felt it from 5 kilometers away. Light that wasn't light. Presence that made everything else seem small. The Emperor's full power unleashed. It burned through the palace, through reality, through everything. When it faded, Horus was gone. Not dead, annihilated. Erased so completely even his soul was destroyed. The siege ended. The traitor legions fled or died. The World Eaters charged one final time, seeking death, We gave it to them. By dawn of day 56, it was over. I stood on what remained of the Helios Gate. The sun was rising. Actually rising. For the first time in 2 months, I could see it. Around me, the survivors were silent. We'd held. We'd won. We'd lost everything that mattered. Brother Cavis was dead. Sergeant Cross was dead. Malkar was dead. Sigismund was broken. Sanguinius was gone. The Emperor was on the throne, neither living nor dead. We'd won. Captain Hector found me there. His armor was so damaged it barely functioned. He was missing 3 fingers on his left hand, had a lace burn across his faceplate that had fused the helm to his skull. He'd need surgery to remove it. He stood beside me, said nothing for a long time. Was it worth it? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was empty. Ask me in 10,000 years. 3 days later, a shell found me. Demolish a round, point blank. Turned my lower body to paste, crushed my rib cage, shredded my organs. I was still alive when they brought me in. Barely. The Tech Marines asked if I wanted the Emperor's piece. I said no. They asked if I understood what entombment meant. I said yes. They sealed what was left of me inside this sarcophagus. Plugged my nervous system into a Dreadnought chassis. Told me I would serve forever. That was 5,500 years ago. I dream sometimes. Dream about having hands. Dream about Malchar's laugh. Dream about Cavis cauterizing his stump without a sound. Dream about Cross singing on the wall edge. Dream about being human. Then I wake in this tomb of steel and ceramite. Wake to alerts and target locks and ammunition feeds. Wake to a galaxy that's only gotten darker. Only gotten meaner. Only proven that we were right to stand. Was it worth it? I still don't know. But I know this. I would do it again. Every moment, every horror, every brother lost. Because the alternative was extinction. And humanity deserves better than to die quietly. We are still here. The Imperium endures. The Emperor's light still burns through this corpse I inhabit. Through this machine I've become. Through these walls I defend. That has to mean something. Because if it doesn't, we died for nothing. And I can't accept that. Won't accept that. Will stand here for another 5,000 years if I must. The palace still stands. The Emperor protects. And we will never surrender. I am Talos of the 3rd Company. I died on day 37. I've been dying ever since. And I would do it again. For the Emperor. For humanity. For the hope that someone, somewhere, will remember we stood.